Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Ambassador. I am disappointed that we start today's hearing without action to extend the Trade Adjustment Assistance Program scheduled to expire in just a few days. TAA has been a good faith effort for nearly 50 years to assist workers who have lost their jobs through trade and globalization. As a result of the 2009 reforms, an additional 170,000 workers are eligible for TAA, which will help them secure new good-paying jobs. Starting Tuesday, tens of thousands of displaced workers in our country will be affected, and I strenuously urge my Republican colleagues not to let this vital process. Congressional Democrats have been actively working to shape a new trade policy that is responsive to the changing dynamics of a global economy. We rejected the passive, hands-off approach of the last administration, are embracing expansion of trade in ways that assess its impact and broaden the benefits from expanded trade. Carrying out this new policy, we succeeded in pushing for the inclusion of enforceable worker rights and environmental standards, beginning with their incorporation in the PRU-FTA. We have fought for vigorous enforcement of basic rules of competition with our trading partners. We have insisted that trade must be a two-way street, not a one-way street in critical areas of trade. This is in sharp contrast to the approach of the last administration, whose view was that trade was good in and of itself, and that more trade automatically was better regardless of its terms. As President Obama responded, and I quote, "We just went through a decade where we were told that it didn't matter. Just keep on importing, buying stuff from other countries, and everything is going to be okay. But it was built on a house of cards," end of quote. So the Obama administration has undertaken a vital effort to implement a new and improved trade policy. For example, a commitment to the enforcement of existing trade agreements and trade laws. That was clear from the China Safeguard Action on tires. And I mentioned the previous administration on 4 occasions refused to use that safeguard. And recent data indicate that the Safeguard Action has helped to make possible an increase in U.S. production and employment in U.S. tire manufacturing. The commitment to enforcement is also clear from the filing of the first case ever on labor provisions in the trade agreement with Guatemala. A commitment to two-way trade was embodied in the President's insistence that we go back and change the Korea Free Trade Agreement to finally knock down the barriers there, where automotive trade accounts for 75% of the $10 billion U.S. trade deficit with Korea. This would not have happened if the Republicans had earlier succeeded in their insistence that flawed agreements be approved. Likewise, in the case of Panama, the administration pushed for an agreement to address Panama's status as a tax haven, and we understand Panama is working to ratify and implement that agreement now. This administration has also been working on efforts started several years ago to ensure that Panama's labor laws comply with basic international standards and with its FTA obligations. Because of our efforts, there are now important labor law changes pending before the Panamanian legislature. With regard to Colombia, as we have pointed out repeatedly and as indicated consistently in the State Department and ILO reports, there are serious outstanding issues relating to the Colombia FTA. Colombia labor laws fall short of ILO norms, and workers struggle to exercise their rights to associate and collectively bargain. Persistent problems include abuse of cooperative and other forms of contracting, employers' direct negotiation with workers when unions are present, and prohibitions on the right to strike. Moreover, enforcement of labor laws is weak. Union worker violence in Colombia remains unacceptably high, if not the highest in the world. Limited progress is being made in the investigation and prosecution of those responsible. Additionally, reports indicate that threats against union workers and others have increased, and there's been little concrete action to date to pursue these cases. As I observed during my 5-day fact-finding trip in Colombia last month, the new Santos administration has now articulated a different approach from its predecessor that provides an opportunity for serious discussions between the two governments on these concerns. But we should be very clear that the burden is on the Colombian government to act and address these concerns that have been made abundantly clear to them for years. The only adequate measuring stick is progress on the ground. There are other areas where I believe we can do more to change U.S. trade policy, and I go into, and Mr. Camp, the chairman, has talked about China's trade distorting policies, and I also urge that the administration take a more assertive stance to address China's currency manipulation. And so let me just say this as I conclude. It is action on so many fronts that we are already taking. Republicans have expressed impatience with changing U.S. trade policy, as they have called for us to return to the failed policies of the past and approve flawed trade agreements. So let me be clear, we will not go back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.